Hey guys, so today I want to talk about the heart. And before we get into that, anybody who's been enjoying my content, please I ask you to like it when you are watching it and subscribe. It really helps out. Leave any comments. And again, I always encourage my listeners or viewers to leave comments about anything, stuff you appreciate, but also stuff you question, other angles you want to elucidate on my material from, because that is really my love. It's trying to paint a three-dimensional picture, because there's always so many versions of a truth. And if you like that idea, you can watch my video on languages play, because that's something I'm also going to build on. But today I want to talk about the heart. So spiritually, my teacher, my longest teacher, Lazar Freeman, we used to teach us in accordance to the way of the heart, which is spiritually known as the middle way. The heart is the middle chakra. It is the gateway between our lower chakras and our higher chakras. So lower chakras, you have the root, you have the sacral, and you have the solar plexus. There are lower urges. They are survival, nurture, procreation, and will, determination. Then you have the heart chakra, and then you get into expression of emotion of the throat and truth, your third eye, empathy or judgment, relating to others and relating to ideas, and crown, a sense of something higher in terms of guidance. However, I was taught that for the most harmonious path, you follow the heart. And an intuitive, very strong intuitive friend of mine, Shakira Hughes, great reader, if anybody's ever looking for some advice on decisions they want to make in their life, and a healer as well, she once told me in a profound moment, when someone just says something, it just resonates with truth. She said, she kind of does that all the time. But she said, the heart is the softest and strongest organ of the body at the same time. So it's our source of love and compassion, and also it takes a lot of courage to follow your heart when it's telling you something, because it's usually in conflict with the ego. And I have notes on this today, guys, so please excuse me as I refer to my notes at times. I've come to believe that our heart really is conspiring to help us make healthy choices. And I believe that this is because our heart, and this is, I'm going to elucidate again with a poetic license, I've come to believe that the heart, its resonance with the subconscious is near infinite. And I want to start with this analogy, and I use this in my healings, and I use this in meditations that I take people through. And let's do that now. I want you now to just, in your seat, take a moment, ground yourself, settle yourself, put your feet on the ground. And for those who don't want to go through this as a meditation, just listen to it as an analogy. I want you to close your eyes. Let's take a deep breath in. Maybe that's the first deep breath you had for the day. Let that sink in. Feel any tightness in the body. Feel any constrictions in the body. Let's take another one. Now as you keep doing that, just take 2 more deep ones and then settle on a more regulated breath. And on your next inhale, I want you to feel your weight on the chair or wherever you're sitting, your sit bones, your thighs, your feet on the ground. On the exhale, feel yourself sink into that weight, that point of contact. And now on your next breaths, I want you to consider that air fills all the empty spaces around us. That our physical manifestation makes that so. And that we do not exist in separation from the air. That when we are born, we're picked up, held by our foot upside down. The doctor gives you a spank. That baby comes to life with its first breath. And that is a subconscious process that is built into the design of who we are. So in a sense, we've evolved to be in connection with space around us in order to exist. Deep connection. We don't even have to think about it. We're breathing in the air, the space around us. And when that air comes in to our lungs, it is fed to the heart, which pumps that oxygen around the body. And that vitalizes the body. So it is our connection to the earth, to the space around us, that pumps in its gaseous, invisible form into the body. And in exchange for taking in the space around us, our heart emits a sonic pulse. So there's a transaction there between space and sound. And that every living thing with a heart has that connection. It is breathing in space around it, and what that space asks for in exchange of it coming in, that innate connection, is a sonic pulse. And I want you to think about this. Studies have shown that we have brain matter, gray matter, not just in our skull, but that lines the entire digestive tract down to our genitalia area, with a concentration around the heart and a concentration around the gut. And some scientists have started to term these other concentrations of gray matter as the second and third brain. Now, I like to view these brains as potentially the subconscious. So you have the conscious brain, which is all our processing of our senses, our thoughts, our storing of memories. And then we have these other brain centers, which scientists believe are there because they can more quickly respond instinctively. So for example, if something's burning your hand, the signal doesn't have to make it all the way through your brain, so it can consciously be processed. And so you can realize, oh, I need to pull it away from that because that's hot. It reaches your heart, and the heart can take this executive decision, a sort of unconscious decision, an instinctive decision to just pull away. Or same with your foot, with your lower brain. So I like to believe that, if the heart is what is pumping the oxygen from the air that we're taking in throughout the body, who knows what kind of information that air can hold. And that who knows what that relationship means in terms of how much we extend into our surroundings. And I just want to keep building on that analogy. For those of you who've been doing the meditation and looking at it that way, experiencing the YouTube video that way, you can continue to close your eyes. We can go on an adventure that way, or you can open them and keep listening. But you can keep that as an idea to focus on. Next time you're breathing in, imagining that is the connection of the universe that transcends one-dimensional frequency of well, I don't know, it's an invisible one. Well, smell and feeling, and emits sonic pulse. Well, there's studies that have been shown. There's studies that have been shown that if we focus our breath with this imaginative idea in mind, that as you're breathing in and out, you're imagining the air go down past and come up past your heart. What they've noticed is that calms anxiety after a while. But what it also does is it steadies the heart rate, and it gives it a more uniform pulse. And when we get anxious, that pulsing it becomes ununiform. And so in a sense, if you just focus on your heart, you're steadying yourself, and you take yourself into parasympathetic nervous system. Now, the second analogy I want to move to is, so there's a podcast I listen to, Duncan Trussell Family Hour, and he has this amazing ultramarathon runner and health specialist called Brian McKenzie, and he is a deep breathwork advocate, and he talks about studies that he's looked up, and one of them in particular that blew my mind was the idea that if they took a heart rate monitor and went into the African savannah and they monitored the heart rate of, let's say, a cheetah and a gazelle in the same plains, that heart rate monitor shows that the gazelle and the cheetah are in parasympathetic nervous system state. That means open, calm, not fight or flight, just there, observing and going about its needs without the sense of threat. Even though the cheetah is a natural predator of the gazelle. However, the gazelle will snap into sympathetic nervous response and the heart rate will start to beat faster the moment the cheetah is within range of there being a chase. I just want that to sink in for a second. Until then, they're both calm in the same plains, around the watering hole, wherever it is. And this is how animals function. Without the type of conscious mind that we do. They are just not in fight or flight until the second. I mean, that is potentially heart rate communication. And to push that notion further, this guy, he went with a bunch of breathwork specialists and guys who swam with sharks. So people who also free dive. So they have incredible mastery over slowing down their heart rate and slowing down their breath and kind of going into an altered state of consciousness, altered state of being at least. And in South Africa, off the coast of South Africa, they went cage swimming with great white sharks, and they dared to test what would happen if they came out of the cage and went into the same water as these great white sharks, if they could keep their breath, if they could keep their heart rate steady and their breath slow. And what they noticed is that as long as they had their heart rate steadied, the sharks could not start to approach them in terms of any kind of predator-prey relationship. They just did not register them as something to toy with. And there's a lot of these divers now that go out there with the chainmail in their hands and they form a relationship with reef sharks and things like this. And you see the sharks start doing tricks with them. I mean, who knows what actually being calm around these animals, which are programmed to seemingly, hypothetically, go into a certain role, given a certain nervous system response, given a certain heart rate response. And, today, we don't have a relationship to each other which involves predator-prey relationships. I mean, depends. There's always scary people out there, and there's certain behaviors that are more conducive for success. I'll get into that in another YouTube video. However, disagreeability in particular. However, the highest levels of success is when that is leveled out with compassion and intelligence. But if you think about it today, our heart rates are probably emitting a signal that on a subconscious level is interpreted. And if you think about all the stress that our cell phones give us, our addictions give us, our job situations give us, any moment we're not in the present really starts to give us what kind of signals we're emitting from the heart and what kind of signals that's subconsciously emitting outwards to other people's sensing of your heart. I mean, if you guys have played with this enough, such laws of manifestation, intention, things like this, you probably realize that when you approach something with a positive attitude, with a non-attached attitude, all the basic laws of manifestation, seeing yourself having the likely outcome, non-attached, confident, feeling yourself as the person that will succeed in that moment, and facing your anxiety constantly around the same task till it makes you less anxious, you tend to have a more likely outcome that is favorable. And this is why I start to think that these things, this is very similar, the ideas of remaining in parasympathetic nervous system and that of vibrational frequency. So when we're high vibration, we're manifesting very easily. And things that keep us in high vibration is being healthy as well, taking care of our diet, practices like meditation, anything that gives you a sense of self-worth and a sense of mastery and practice, and where you can forget the world around you and do something for the sheer joy that it brings. And in fact, the more joy things bring, the more you stay in a high vibrational state. And so potentially when humans, are the only other major threat to other humans, it is a sense of someone who's in a truly joyous state that manifests more quickly from other human beings. This is a sense of reward for being the kind of human being that is contributing harmony. And I'm not saying that there means there are people who are better than others, but maybe that's just a universal design for the people who gain influence. And, starts to feed into a guidebook that there's a blueprint within us for harmony and for positive manifestation, and it's kind of hardwired into how we function, just at a level that's so intricate that again, it's one of those things that our human minds can't really fathom. And so I came up with this quote: "We fear exactly what we allow to be perceived as fearful." And so this makes me come back to facing your anxiety, guys. Watch the videos on anxiety. I explained that anxiety is us coming up to the edge of something that we're comfortable with. But on the other side of that anxiety can be expansion if it's anxiety towards something that we want to be good at. So practicing a new skill, worrying about if we're good enough whilst we're doing it, etc., etc., etc. The more you keep facing that anxiety, the more you're opening new pathways in the brain. You're taking the unknown into the known, because the ego, or the conscious mind, protects us by having us think of all the ways something potentially go wrong to keep us safe. But if we push through that anxiety and we actually get on the other side of that task, for example, standing up and speaking in front of a bunch of people, or trying to sell your artwork, or starting a new hobby, you've been drumming for a long time, this is going to be your first gig. The more you do that, the more you make that something that you face, the more you will be able to find yourself in that moment and not focus on the hoped for outcome, but focus on the joy that it brings you, because you have a sense of attained skill towards that. And so that'll open new pathways, which will not be ones of anxiety, but which will be ones related to an expectable outcome, one that is rewarding, one that is worthwhile, especially if you accept your journey. And so I like to say that, also, if you think about going back a bit to the fact that we have so many of these things that do make us anxious out there, imagine all the signals you're sending out there. Imagine this kind of cross network of anxious heart signals that's just beaming out. And maybe that's why when you're in a low vibration, you attract low vibration people. Because that is a place in which disharmonious or, more anxious heart pulses can coexist, or what it invites, because of the energy of threat. And this can link to realms of projection. People create stories around things that aren't the case because of trauma they've had, or because of ways they've had to interpret the world to defend themselves against the way they were raised, or whatever it is. And why it could be important to also undo those projections, because then you're living in a way where you can actually perceive things for what they are. But again, this is where gratitude comes in. And if you think about it, you're always in parasympathetic nervous state if you're not worried about the future outcome, or if you're not worried about something's linked to the past. So this whole breathing through the heart, in a sense, has another aspect of just bringing you to presence. Which, if you guys have listened to my YouTube channel before, I'm a huge fan of Eckhart Tolle. His book was huge for my spiritual journey, A New Earth, and his main focus is just being present, the power of now. And so, in a sense, following the heart is being present, and then taking an action or taking decision from that place of presence. As another friend once expressed to me, the heart is non-duality. So in non-duality, you're not really interpreting. You're just right here. You're present in the now. And also, if you're like me and you fail to follow the heart in some way or another, it feels like sometimes that energy kind of stays with you. Like there's a decision that could be made for your heart's sake, and that energy is still there. I want to give a bit of advice for this, because one thing that I find for me helps a lot with these moments is hot Epsom salts baths. I go in there and I do my breath work, and then my heart gets supercharged, and I start to feel like my truths from my heart are heard a lot more intently, because it's opening the heart, it's opening all the blood vessels in the body, it's allowing you to breathe deeper into the ribs and lungs, everything's expanded, everything's soft, the hips, so your connection to rooting and the will energy and anything a bit hard and determined is softened. Also, your brain can calm down, it loosens the gray matter in the head, it loosens the skull, it just lets everything swim a bit more, and the heart is, if you slow your breath, the heart is really beating when you're in the bathtub. And sometimes I like to go in there, sit down, and that's when I really, things that I wish I'd said to people, or realizations, or things that I need to have felt for myself to release certain energies, or my truths of what I really want for myself, come out in those hot Epsom salts baths. So there's something you can do if you're having trouble listening to the heart. But I think also listening to the heart, it's not what we're told, you know? So personally, my journey has been like a coming away from that, because, well, my story is that psychology became my father at a young age. So I lost my dad at the age of 14. And then after that, I had to start seeing a psychotherapist. And so very young, psychotherapy replaced my father. And I've come to a time in my life where spirituality was calling me, and I kind of fell into it. So I was older, the same psychiatrist suggested to me a new earth, just as an afterthought. 'Cause he thought I would appreciate it, and that kind of opened things up. And that was the beginning of me kind of loosening my grips on psychology as the master, because it kept me in my brain with a lot of rules, whereas I felt I learned all the wisdom of that having lived by it for so long, from such a young age. And so I think it's quite common in the Western world to have that fear around the heart, because it's not rational. And as much as psychology is an amazing tool, it's helped me, and I think many others, reframe the strength of vulnerability, what attributes we need for success, how to face the reasons why we do things so we can come out of the patterns, and everything else that the field has helped us with. Archetypal notions, mythology, through lines in mythology, all the spiritual essence that is in psychoanalytical jargon, etc. However, sometimes I feel like at a certain point you wrestle with that long enough, and things can kind of boil down to, or need to be married with, listen to your body, learn to listen to your body, because actually your body is connected with the beginning of the evolution of life on Earth, and it's reached us, and it's come up through all the different variations of mineral configuration, what's been available resources wise, nutritionally, the content of the air, and everything. Everything that sourced life on Earth and from space, with like sunlight, the moon affecting the tides. I do believe that, in a sense, that that is how we're infinitely connected. That is the source of oneness, is that we are the consciousness, we are the space that consciousness takes up in a void of all other consciousness. We are shaped by everything that's not us. And the same with everything else. But so coming back to the heart, I just want to end on a positive note. So guys, and this is to help people doing the gratitude practices where you kind of just start to focus more of your thoughts, more of your intentions, which takes you back to presence more easily. Because when we're in a state of joy and gratitude, it's not an idea. It's just a sensation. It's kind of a state of being. So the more you do a gratitude journal practice and you start to really find your joy for the littlest things. I mean, this morning I was writing in my gratitude journal, I was saying like, thanks for my fingers to be able to write. Thanks for the sun coming in through the window. Thanks for this blanket, this fleece that I wear in the morning right when I wake up first thing. Because guys, it's great to journal when you wake up first thing in the morning. You're still kind of connected to the subconscious. So if you want to plant in gratitudes, affirmations, or just write out and see what's really in there needs to be expressed, vent out some emotions that don't become part of your draws and patterns in the day. But I'll discuss that in another YouTube video. But the more you work towards a balance of being grateful for the little things, the more it works out to just having more heart resonance, more parasympathetic nervous state towards the bigger things, and it makes you less fearful in a state of movement because your brain is programmed to find things that it knows it's happy about that are in the background of everything that you can do. And the more things that you do that you add into your gratitude list, then it moves into not just what's in the background, but the actual doing of things. And also, guys, maybe feel proud that if you have a meditative practice, if you do chanting, it's been shown in studies that choirs who practice a long time tend to synchronize heartbeats. And so there's it's not a surprise that the churches have been having religious ceremony have been in correlation with choirs for a long time and music. When bands play, crowds can synchronize heartbeats according to songs and things like this. So hearts tend to synchronize and have a more uniform beat when we're in a state of bliss, and that surely perpetuates a big pulse of everything's all right. So I don't just believe that that you're helping yourself face reality. I believe you're sending out a signal that it's safe around here. I mean, they've had transcendental meditation groups. The guy who invented it used to take out a group of transcendental meditators to parts of the world which were in turmoil, and they would just congregate en masse in a building or some space they rented out and just do transcendental meditation over months. And, it's not scientifically correlated, but during the times they were there, crime statistics and etc. would go down. So I think you can even give yourself a pat on the back of contributing to society once you're taking care of your mental health. And again, I wanted to talk about diet earlier, and I never expanded. The more you are eating healthy, the less you have demands from unhealthy gut biome on your psyche to keep you into limited forms of expression. And I've seen this. I had an ex who had a severe anxiety disorder, and she decided to start changing her diet. And within 2-3 weeks, she was a different person. Her eyes focused on on reality differently. Her stride was different. She just looked more joyous, more buoyant, more glowing. And so I believe a lot of people who, if you have unhealthy eating habits and you have a lot of trouble focusing, or a lot of things make you anxious because you're not confident that you're already good at them, I believe that negative nutrition or things that don't really correlate with us at the deepest level of health that we're eating make that anxiety barrier come up more easily. So keep the heart outside of parasympathetic nervous state more readily. And that's just a hack that you could do to be more in tune with the fluidity of things. And like I've said in my You Are What You Eat YouTube video, guys, I want to always link these things because I want to create a 3-dimensional picture of well-being. That, in a sense, is also our link to nature. The Dr. Zach Bush correlates that all ailments can be traced back to something that's unhealthy in our environment. Water sources, what's going into the soil, that eventually goes into the animals around us, into the air, pollution, smog that we're breathing, and then manifests as ailments that modify our behavior. Again, a sense of oneness there. We will be healthy if our environment feels healthy, sustaining us. And again, more healthy heartbeats. So guys, it's all kind of unifying. There's a proof is in the pudding. If heaven is on earth, if heaven is manifesting on earth, as Eckhart Tolle says, the presence will allow to manifest. It's in our DNA. It's inscripted in our DNA. It's in accordance with what makes us healthy and what makes us harmonious with our environment around us. It all leads to the fact that, in a sense, the healthiest human understands there's nothing to be fearful of and just goes through life as a journey. It's not the destination. It's the way there. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you have, and I made you curious about other YouTube videos, please jump on my channel, check them out. I've named the ones that I've linked this to. They're like this, half an hour, 15 minutes to half an hour about one topic. You might see some overlap, but I'm a huge fan of Alan Watts, so I try to kind of get a more three-dimensional image through the more of these that you listen to. And I'll be dropping some meditations soon, so please stay tuned for that. If you liked the the sample of a meditation that I brought here, remember, enliven your meditations by giving yourself a sense of altruism. Enliven your practices by just thinking of the sheer joy and love that you're actually sharing with others just by taking care of your own health. And that's something my spiritual coach told us to do. The spiritual work, to do the work with yourself, is to actually help, is to improve the life of those around you. And you will see that happen. And that is probably how, on one level, if you want to look at it scientifically, pseudoscientifically. I'm not a scientist, but these are all facts that correlated. So enjoy, guys. Healer Holly, using poetic license, a dedicated space cadet, trying to find those spaces, dedicated to try and find those spaces of being in all aspects of understanding. Sending you the love, hoping this can help you in some way, just by giving you more of a sense of wonder. And yeah, over and out.